Hello, fantasy football fanatics. This is Razzball Radio. This is the Fantasy Sports Network. This is Nick Capozzi. And this over here is Rob Langevin, a.k.a. Smokey. What's up, Rob?
Hey, Nick. What's going on, buddy? Long time no see.
I know, man. Hey, you were great, by the way, yesterday. The only problem is I got too many good-looking guys on this show now, and it's really making me look ugly. And I got you. I got T-Hole. We got Joe Lisi from Go for the Two coming up, talking college football. You know, I'm going to start calling you Smokey Blue Eyes, which is appropriate because you're from Hoboken.
Well, it's one of my best attributes. You know, I can't shake it, but I might as well use it.
All right, I don't really get that, but let's move along. Let's talk a little Thursday Night Football. By the way, if you're in the San Francisco area and you want to watch Thursday Night Football or college football on Saturday or football on Sunday, do it at the Rec Room. Go see my homeboy Todd. Tell him Nick sent you. He'll do something nice for you. Ask him for a T-shirt, actually. Seriously, Todd gives out T-shirts at the Rec Room in San Francisco. Like it's going out of style. So let's talk about the Thursday night game. Some of the things you are going to be looking at tonight, pondering, observing. What's up with this Cleveland running back situation, Rob?
You know, I'd like to say it's fluid, but it's basically been like it's like a dam on top of a dike on top of like the Hoover Dam.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say it's like fluid that's been frozen.
Yeah, it's
on the Moon Titan.
Yeah, it's not very good for fantasy purposes or daily purposes. I went back and looked over the last 3 weeks. I broke down each guy. You know, Crowell didn't play last week, so his stats are kind of eh. But if you look at the last 3 games, Ben Tate's got 31 carries for 65 yards, 1 touchdown. Terrence West has 27 carries for 67 yards, 0 touchdowns. And Crowell has 8 carries for 19 yards and 0 touchdowns.
It's like the kryptonite of backfields right now.
Yeah, it's ugly. I'd like to see somebody emerge out of there.
Hey, yeah, me too, because they could be useful. But, man, I'm really starting to realize how valuable Alec Mack was to that team. Hey, why do you have a pencil behind your ear?
Because I'm a carpenter.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, carpenter, build me a reason why Mohamed Sanu should still be startable with A.J. Greenback.
Well, they've played 4 games this year together with A.J. Green missing time and the bye week. Their targets are very similar. A.J. Green he's gone 20 receptions, 358 yards, 3 touchdowns in the 4 games they've played together. Mohamed Sanu's gone 18 for 245 and 2 touchdowns. But the targets are the thing that interests me the most. It's 31 for A.J. Green and 30 for Mohamed Sanu.
Yeah, and listen, Sanu's legit. And if you're a defense, you're scheming for A.J. Green. You need to take him out of the game, which can open up opportunities for Sanu. So I'm really excited to see kind of what they do going forward. And, you know, A.J. Green's injury coincided with Cincinnati sucking. Sorry, man. You were bad, Cincy. You were real bad. No, the no man of 3-way chili is going to change my mind on that. What kind of contribution are we going to expect from Jeremy Hill now in this game? Because we talked about Gio Bernard yesterday. When I hear about hips, running backs with hip issues, that ain't hip, bro.
Yeah, I expect Jeremy Hill to probably duplicate what he did last week. You know, somewhere between 22 to 25 touches, probably 150 yards total, and at least 1 score. You know, Cincinnati's run defense isn't the greatest, and it's not the worst, but they're still porous enough that they're good. I mean, Cleveland's defense, I apologize. Cleveland's defense they're like a bend, don't break kind of defense. You know, I expect him to get big chunks of yards, but he's not gonna blow him away. So if he gets 25 touches and he gets 150 total yards, that's probably a win for fantasy purposes.
Okay, I hear you. So right now, another part of the problem the Browns are having is that there's no reliable pass catcher. Andrew Hawkins has been pretty reliable, but not a lot of touchdowns there. Gabriel's kind of interesting. He's pulled off some big plays, but what they really need is Cameron to be in the middle, you know, hoovering in some of those balls. That sounded kind of weird. So what's the deal here? Cameron's probably, you know, no-go. What do you do? What do you do? Do you even want to watch? Of course you do. It's Thursday Night Football. There's no bad matchups on Thursday night.
No, never. As of right now, I believe Cameron has been diagnosed as out. So I believe he's out.
You said that like Andrew a Canadian.
Hawkins, yeah, he's out. But and Andrew Hawkins is questionable. You know, you got Gabriel there. You got Benjamin. You know, those guys are the guys that make Hoyer look good down the field and help improve his yards per throw. but there's just going to be nothing there. It's going to be a big ground and pound game for the Browns, I believe. I just don't think they have a reliable guy that's healthy enough that can actually help them in the pass game.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's talk about something a little bit more exciting here. No, I'm just kidding. That's actually going to be, I think it might be a good matchup. I mean, Cleveland, look, always kind of represents, especially against the AFC North rivals. It's a team that's getting better. Is it really Alex Mack that has caused this much damage to the offensive line?
I don't know if it's Alex Mack or just the lack of prolific playmakers that are there, and that the teams can take away their less than better players by putting their players on them. I just don't think the Browns have that star capability.
That's good analysis. Okay, that's a good argument. Let me ask you this. How soon do we see Johnny Manziel?
Well, the Browns are 5-3 with Hoyer. I mean, unless the Browns completely drop out of it and fall like 3 games behind the Ravens or the Steelers in that division, I think it's going to be Hoyer's show unless he gets hurt.
Okay. Let me ask you this. If you have Jeremy Hill right now, what's he worth on the trade market?
He's a low running back 1 right now. If you're looking for somebody,
let me rephrase it. If you were trying to acquire him, what would you be willing to give up? Would you pay a low running back 1 price? Because I think, he's a guy you could get. I think that because we are talking about a hip injury with Bernard, there's upside beyond just the next week or two. Mm-hmm. What would you pay for a short-term, low-end RB1? It took me 8 minutes to get to that question.
I mean, you're going to look for something of decent quality there. So you're probably going to want another running back 1 on a lesser team, or somebody that has the ability to get you yards at the expense of not losing Jeremy Hill's stat. What about like a Chris Ivory or somebody like that?
I think I'd rather have Ivory rest the season just because I think he's going to be, you know what you're going to get. Oh, the Jets are so bad, though. I mean, are they crying in their beer in New York?
Yeah, but we drink it afterwards.
Hey, that's New York. All right, buddy, listen. We're going to take a break because right now I might need to have a frosty beverage, like some ice water. And after talking to you, man, you make me crazy, Rob. I'm just kidding. All right, this is Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network. We'll be right back. We're going to talk some daily fantasy plays, so don't go nowhere. Welcome back, Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network. Smokey, a.k.a. our Loogie out of the pen. You can follow him on Twitter at Smokey_Loogie, Loogy. Versatile, though, man, because now you're doing soccer, too, at Razzball, soccer.razzball.com. Hey, do you have some Razzball commentator leagues kicking off with that, by the way, if people want to play like the EPL fantasy, which I know nothing about?
Yeah, we started off an RCL league like football and baseball do on Razzball. It's going to be held on fantasy.premierleague.com. There's a post up on razzball.com about it. There's a passcode in there. All you do is join up. It's basically played like a daily setup. If everybody's ever played DraftKings, it's kind of played just like that, but for a season instead of a week.
That was a great segue into DraftKings. By the way, does Paul Gascoigne still play?
I'm sorry?
Does Paul Gascoigne still play soccer?
If he does, it's maybe like a wheelchair league.
All right. Let's talk about some of the daily fantasy plays. Of course, you can always sign up. DraftKings.com. Enter promo code Razzball to get first time deposit match because that would be wicked. Let's talk about some value QBs. You like Matty Ryan this week at $6,300?
Oh, I do. I
do?
I do. I absolutely do. He's going up against Tampa Bay. They're the second worst pass defense in football.
Mm-hmm.
Just look at who's above him. You got guys like Kyle Orton. You got Nick Foles, who's above him. Mike Glennon's just been replaced. That are all getting more value, more money for them this week. How could you not look at 6,300 and be a value for Ryan?
Yeah, especially too. Remember what he did, like early in the season on Thursday night game against Tampa, when Atlanta still looked like they were good.
Yeah, they threw up 45 points.
All right, let's get into the running backs because there's a couple of value guys here. One is Justin Forsett, 5 Gs. You like that price?
Yeah, Tennessee's a bottom 5 run defense. I like it. I think that he'll be involved in the play even if the game's out of hand. He'll catch a few out of the backfield. PPR is always a plus win in DK.
Yeah, I like that. What about LeSean McCoy? Because to me, he looks undervalued at $5,600. Problem is, he hasn't. There's been no touchdowns this year, or very limited touchdowns for LeSean McCoy. That's what's really hurt his value. He's been pretty good the last 2-3 weeks, but again, this lack of touchdowns. You think he's actually going to put one in this week, or what?
I think he does. I think they're going to rely on the ground game a little bit more because Sanchez can't press the ball down the field like Foles can. He's not a deep ball thrower. McCoy at 5,600 is good. The thing I like about McCoy is the last 4 games he's gone over 20 carries a game. So that right there is showing that he's getting more volume.
Right.
So volume equals mass equals the cylindrical square circumference.
Come on. Don't try to act like you're smarter than you are. Although you are actually like Mensa smart. People don't realize it because he's such a goofball. This guy could be in Mensa, but he doesn't want to be because he plays fantasy. Let's talk some wide receivers. Roddy White, $5,100. Same kind of logic here against the Tampa Bay Buccaroos.
Absolutely. Depending on how you configure your lineup, I always, when I make my lineups for DraftKings, I like to do a quarterback wide receiver combo every single time.
Why?
So,
tell me why.
Because you double up. You kind of get the maximum from the touchdown from the quarterback, and then you get the PPR and the touchdown from the wide receiver.
But if they both bust, you bust.
Yeah, absolutely. But usually what I do is I try to look at the matchup and I don't usually take the top guy, because the top guy would be Julio Jones, who's going at like 6,600 this week, who's probably a little bit less than the top tier guys. So I look at the second round guys, like Roddy White on a pass-happy team like the Falcons, and there you go. Depending on how you build your roster, though, Harry Douglas is also going to be a sneaky play there as well. So if you want to sneak like an Antonio Brown, another top wide receiver ahead of those two, and then a Harry Douglas with a Matt Ryan, you're looking pretty sweet.
I'm actually going to steal some of these picks this weekend because so Ryan Hodge from Project Roto at RotoHobo, funny guy, man. You got to follow Hodgie on the tweet machine. He got together this group of fantasy guys, like 20 of us, and there's no money involved, but it's just for kind of bragging rights. And the guy who finishes last has to hold up a sign in public that says, "I suck at fantasy." And last week, I finished 17th out of 20. Whew, I was quaking my boots because I can't regularly play daily fantasy because I live in Arizona. We need to change that, Arizona. Let's get a march going. And I don't have to hold up that sign because I got a feeling that would live in infamy. I might even have to put it up in the background here. All right, sticking to wide receivers. Let's talk about Kenny Britt, who's kind of emerged here as the number one guy. I mean, people were talking when Quick got hurt. It was going to be Bailey. What happened to Chris Givens? Wasn't there a guy named Tavon something on that team? But Kenny Britt's been the guy, $3,800.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically the best wide receiver there by attrition. But the value he's getting right now, he's 3,800. He's going against Arizona. They're the worst pass defense in football. Davis likes to sling it around. I think the Rams are going to be in this game for a while and probably want to press the ball down the field. I think Britt catches 5 or 6 balls, maybe close to 80 yards.
I could see that. I mean, you're talking about bend not break in the first segment with Cleveland. That's kind of what Arizona does, and they kind of let you, pass a little bit on it. Plus, Arizona's had a tough schedule, actually.
Yeah, well, look at their division. I mean, anybody who plays Seattle twice, San Francisco twice.
Well, they haven't even played Seattle yet.
Yeah, I know. They play them like twice in 4 weeks.
That's you know what? That's actually a good pick because a lot of people are just going to look at Arizona and not think about the pass defense. So, Britt, I like that. You got Kenny Stills, 4,300.
Yeah, I mean, the last 3 games he's got 248 yards receiving. The Drew Brees likes to sling it. He's kind of like that. He's probably like your third, your last wide receiver that you want to fit in.
Right.
But he's good value at 4,300 depending on how you stack up your roster. So Saints like to throw the ball. He likes to catch it. Good for him.
Stills or Douglas?
It always depends on who your quarterback is for me. But I'd probably if your quarterback is somebody better than Matt Ryan, I'd probably go with Stills.
Okay, that's fair. What about tight ends? Charles Clay of the Miami Dolphins. This guy's kind of underrated because he hasn't gotten a lot of respect. This guy's pretty fantasy relevant. He's one of those safe, steady guys. He's a guy that when my guys are on bye weeks or if I have injuries, which, I had Jimmy Graham in a couple leagues this year, Gronkowski. Mm-hmm. Charles Clay's a good get, man. What do you like about him this week?
He plays almost on every down because he's a great blocker because he used to be an H-back. But he's playing against the Lions, and their pass defense is going to rush Tannehill all game.
Yeah,
and Tannehill's going to need some short dump off guys. So if Clay basically averages like 7 targets, 5 receptions, about 45 yards a game, if he can duplicate that with more catches and more yards, then how is he not a good play at what he's valued at?
I like it. All right, Rob, listen, buddy, we got to wrap this up because I got to talk a little college football. It's a good week in college. Do you watch much college?
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometime. Okay. So Joe Lisi from GoForThe2.com is going to come on out, and we're going to talk about some of the big matchups this week. I'm excited to watch this Alabama at LSU down in the Bayou because 2-3 weeks ago, We thought LSU was done. Speaking of done, so is this segment. We love you, Robbie. At Smokey _ Loogie. I'm Nick Capozzi, Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network. Back right after this. Welcome back, Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network. Now joined by Joseph Lisi of GoForThe2.com, our college football expert. Joe, I got to be honest with you. You know, I'm a pretty confident guy, but I'm starting to lose some confidence here because I got all these super handsome co-hosts and guests coming on. You, Smokey, T-Hole. You know, maybe actually our secret plan here is to try to attract some more female viewers. But listen, you might be a pretty face, but you also know your college football. So let's get to it, bud. So Joe, sorry. I apologize, buddy. Joe, let me ask you this. A couple weeks ago, we'd be looking at this Alabama-LSU matchup. Alabama number 5, LSU number 16, and thinking, might not be a good game because it looked like the Tigers' season was spiraling out of control. But the last 2-3 weeks, they put it together, and they're at home. Can they beat the Tide?
They can, Nick. And when you look at this matchup, Alabama's won the last 2. Alabama looking to make a national championship run. But you look at what LSU was able to do 2 weeks ago against the number 1 SEC-ranked defense in Ole Miss. They put up 264 rushing yards, 4.8 yards per carry. They have 3 solid backs in Leonard Fournette, Terrence McGee, and Kenny Hilliard, and I think that's the difference. Les Miles, the Mad Hatter, it's 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock night game in Baton Rouge, and I think LSU strikes the upset. They have a solid offensive line, and you look at Alabama's last trip to Knoxville 2 weeks ago, they gave up 181 rushing yards to the Tennessee Volunteers. Not sold on Alabama's rush defense at this point in the season. They struggled on the road. I'm calling for the upset in Baton Rouge, 27-21. LSU strikes it.
By the way, you got to check out Joe's. You actually write down what Joe's picks are, or you know what, even better, Joe. Next week I'll just tell them how good you did because Joe's you're batting like 750 this year with us. It's unbelievable. All right, Kansas State. Who knew Kansas State was 7 in the nation? I mean, I've been to Manhattan, Kansas. There ain't much there, so I guess they get time to work on their football schemes. Number 7 K-State versus number 6 TCU. TCU only 1 game behind K-State. This is a big matchup.
This is a huge matchup in the Big 12 conference. This will really propel the team to make a playoff run. When you look at Kansas State, they're solid, have a solid quarterback in Jake Waters and 2 solid wide receivers in Curry Sexton and Tyler Lockett. But you look at the flip side, TCU, very balanced offensively, 335 passing yards per game, 214 rushing yards per game. They have a dynamic dual threat quarterback in Trev Boykin, 23 touchdowns on the year, only 4 INTs. He can make plays with his feet. And you look at that TCU defense, Nick, only giving up 21 points per game. They're plus 15 in turnover margin, which is number 1 in the country. And they can create sacks, 24 sacks through 8 ball games. You look at Kansas State's offensive line, they're giving up 16 sacks through 8 ball games. I think defensively, TCU is the more complete team. Couple the fact that they're playing at home, I think TCU gets the victory on Saturday.
All right, go Horned Frogs. The Golden Domers of Notre Dame, ranked 10th in the nation, head down to the Valley of the Sun. They are in ASU this week, and I heard there was people lined up in Tempe at the ticket sales office for 2 days. Listen, I want to break this game down for you, but just before you do, Joe, with all the conferences kind of shifting, you know, and I think we're just scratching the surface of this playoff system. I got a feeling, and I don't know how long it'll be because, you know, the NCAA, you know, is slow to make change. But I could see a situation where, you know, we've got like a 16-team playoff heading down the road, and I think those conferences are obviously going to play the major role. Is there a chance that Notre Dame eventually winds up in one of these kind of Super 16 conferences?
Well, they're playing an ACC schedule right now. 6 of their games
but
on
they're still independent, though, right?
Right. They are an independent, right. You can see it. It's a shift. Anything can happen, Nick. We've seen conference change over the last few years. It's been almost commonplace in college football, so you can't rule it out. I do think, though, that if Notre Dame does make a shift at any point within the next few years, it will be to the ACC because they already are on top with an ACC schedule at this point.
I hear you. I'd just love to see them in the Big Ten. That just seems appropriate. It really does. All right, so the matchup. Do my Sun Devils have a shot?
Oh, they most definitely have a shot. They come off a very impressive 19-16 victory in overtime last week against a solid Utah team. They have a dynamic quarterback in Taylor Kelly. But you look at Notre Dame right now, led by Everett Golson, 22 touchdown passes, another 7 touchdown runs. He's a dual threat quarterback. And you look at Notre Dame's wide receivers of William Fuller and Corey Robinson, combined 75 receptions, 13 touchdowns, and you look at their heavy offensive line, I think that's the difference. Notre Dame will be without its leading tackler, Joe Schmidt, but you look at the Arizona State defense, they're giving up 190 rushing yards per game, 291 passing yards per game. I like the matchup of Fuller and Robinson up against ASU secondary, and I think this is a close Notre Dame victory, 31-27. Notre Dame pulls it out in Tempe. He's even
giving us the points. Look out. Okay, number 4, Oregon versus number 17, Utah. Utah, tough week last week. You just mentioned that. Who wins this one?
Well, this is a close matchup, but I really like Utah in this game. I think they can challenge Oregon. When you look at their defense, 39 sacks in the country, that leads the nation in sacks. Nate Orchard, their defensive lineman, 12 sacks on the year. They're a very physical offensive line that's averaging 198 rushing yards per game. Very underrated running back in Devontae Booker, averaging 5.4 yards per carry. I think the defense can keep them in this ball game and challenge Oregon. I'm calling for the upset in Salt Lake City.
Wow.
Utah strikes the upset over Oregon. I think they can pound them offensively and wear them down.
All right. You know what I love about you? You call upsets too. You're not afraid to do that. Okay, last game on the schedule. The Big Ten might be the most anticipated conference game of the year. 14 Ohio State versus number 8 Michigan. 2 high-scoring teams. You know, you think pounded out football when you think Big Ten, but Ohio State 4th in the nation in scoring. Michigan State 5th. You got about 30 seconds here, Joe. Who's going to take this one?
I like Michigan State at home. You look at their defense, create sacks, and their rushing defense, 95 rushing yards at home, only 45 rushing yards per game. Offensive line playing solid, only surrendering 5 sacks on the year, and they're plus 12 in turnover margin. That's the difference. Michigan State gets the victory on Saturday, but it's a very close game.
He is Joseph Lisi from GoForThe2.com. You can follow him on Twitter at GoForThe2. That's with the number 2. Joe, real quick, where can people listen to you on Yahoo Sports Radio?
They can listen to me every Tuesday night with Ken Thompson, sportsxradio.com, 10:30 to 11:30 Eastern Time.
He is the man. Joe, really appreciate you giving us your picks. We're going to start scoring these because you know what? I've done you an injustice by not doing that. All right, guys, we'll be back tomorrow. We've got the weekend preview with Sky. That's going to be tomorrow. Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network. We'll see you then.